My name's Robin, and I've always been the black sheep in my family. Since I was little, all I wanted to do was draw. I'd spend hours creating characters in my sketchbook, superheroes, animals, magical creatures, you name it. After high school, while everyone was heading off to college, I made what my family called the biggest mistake of my life. Instead of university, I enrolled in 3D modeling courses. I still remember my mom's face when I told her. She just stood there in our kitchen, dish towel in hand, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. "What do you mean you're not going to college?" she asked, her voice rising. "Your sister Jessica went to college. She has a real career now." "Yeah, Jessica. My perfect older sister, who did everything right according to our parents. College degree, office job, married to Tom right after graduation. The whole package." I tried explaining to them about YouTube, about how animators could make a living creating content. I'd gotten pretty good with my tablet and animation software, and I really thought I could make it work. "YouTube?" Dad scoffed one evening during dinner. "That's not a real job, Robin. You're going to live with us forever at this rate." The worst part was, at first, they were kind of right. My early animations barely got any views. I was making pocket change, if that. Every time Jessica and Tom came over for Sunday dinner, she'd make sure to bring it up. "Oh my God, Robin," she said one night, scrolling through her phone with this smirk on her face. "Have you seen the comments on your latest video? These people are savage." Tom leaned over to look at her screen. "Wow, they really are ripping it apart. Maybe animation isn't your thing, Robin." I saw how much they enjoyed it, Jessica's little smirk, the way she'd catch Mom's eye and they'd share this knowing look. Even Dad would shake his head and mutter something about wasting time on cartoons. "When are you going to find a normal job?" Mom would ask at least once a week. "You can't keep living in your little fantasy world forever." But here's the thing about me, I'm stubborn. Instead of giving up, I threw myself into improving. I studied successful channels, analyzed what worked and what didn't. I completely revamped my animation style, made my characters more dynamic, added better storytelling. The change didn't happen overnight. But slowly, steadily, things started picking up. 10 subscribers became 100. 100 became 1,000. Every time I hit a milestone, Jessica would roll her eyes and change the subject to her latest promotion or something. 3 years flew by like a time-lapse animation. My channel had grown beyond anything I could have imagined when I first started. The money was rolling in steadily now, sponsorship deals, merchandise, animation contracts. Every month, my bank account grew bigger, but I kept quiet about it. Let them think I was still struggling. I decided to drop the bomb during one of our regular family dinners. Jessica and Tom were there, as usual. Mom had made her signature lasagna, and everyone was picking at their food while discussing Jessica's latest work promotion. "I have an announcement," I said, setting down my fork. "I'm moving out next week. I've rented an apartment." The silence that followed was beautiful. Jessica choked a bit on her wine. "You what?" she sputtered, exchanging looks with Tom. "Where did you get money for an apartment?" "Dad, are you paying for this?" I took a slow sip of water, enjoying the moment. "Actually, my channel is doing quite well. Well enough that I could rent a house if I wanted to." Mom dropped her fork. The clatter against the plate was almost as loud as the silence that followed. "How much money are we talking about here?" Jessica demanded, her voice sharp. "There's no way you're making that much from YouTube." I just smiled and shrugged. Enough. They peppered me with questions all through dinner, trying to get me to reveal exact numbers, but I kept my mouth shut. The next morning, I moved into my new apartment. It wasn't huge, but it was mine, well, rented, but still mine. No more judgmental looks over breakfast, no more snide comments about my little hobby. I threw myself into work even harder after that. My setup in the new apartment was perfect, a dedicated animation studio with all the equipment I needed. My style evolved, my storytelling got better, and my subscriber count kept climbing. The money kept flowing in, and for the first time in my life, I could shop wherever I wanted. I remember the first time I showed up at my parents' house for dinner wearing designer jeans and carrying a real leather bag. Jessica's eyes nearly popped out of her head. She kept staring at my purse throughout dinner, probably trying to figure out if it was real. "Is that Gucci?" she finally asked, trying to sound casual and failing miserably. "Maybe," I replied, hiding my smile behind my water glass. That's when things started to shift. It began with small things at first. Dad mentioning how the water bill was higher than usual. Mom casually bringing up how the refrigerator was making strange noises and might need replacing. "The property taxes went up this year," Dad said one evening, sliding into what I now recognize as his asking for money voice. "It's getting harder to keep up with all the bills." I wrote them a check right there at the dinner table. Why not? I could afford it. The look of relief on their faces made me feel good, like I was finally proving my worth to them. Pretty soon, it became a regular thing. The utilities needed paying? I'd handle it. The roof needed repairs? No problem. New appliances? Just tell me where to send the money. I was making more than enough to cover their expenses and still save for my own place. Life has a funny way of flipping the script on people. While my animation career was taking off, Jessica's perfect life was starting to show some cracks. She got pregnant with her first baby, and suddenly Tom's salary wasn't looking so impressive anymore. I first noticed something was wrong during a family dinner. Jessica wasn't wearing any of her usual expensive jewelry, and her designer clothes had been replaced with department store brands. She barely touched her food, just pushed it around her plate while Tom talked about rising rent prices. "Everything's so expensive now," Jessica said, bouncing her fussy baby on her knee. "Diapers, formula, clothes, they grow out of everything so fast." I caught her looking at my watch, a little splurge I'd bought myself to celebrate hitting 5 million subscribers. The old Jessica would have made some snarky comment about it. Instead, she just looked tired. That night, I logged into my banking app and set up a monthly transfer to her account. Not a huge amount, but enough to take the edge off. I didn't tell her it was from me at first, but she figured it out pretty quickly. "You don't have to do this," she said when she called me about it, trying to sound proud, but I could hear the relief in her voice. "I want to," I replied. "That's what sisters are for, right?" When I turned 26, I decided it was time to level up my business. Working from home was fine when it was just me, but I had bigger plans. I rented out an entire floor in an office building downtown, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, the works. Then I started hiring other artists, talented people who shared my vision for creating amazing content. "You have your own company now?" Mom asked when I told them about it. "Like, a real office with employees and everything?" "Yeah," I smiled. "A whole team of animators. We're working on some really exciting projects." My success kept snowballing. I bought myself a beautiful apartment in one of those fancy high-rises with a doorman and everything. Then came the new car, nothing too flashy, but definitely nicer than anything I'd ever dreamed of owning before. I was even starting to look at houses, thinking maybe it was time for something bigger. Then Jessica announced she was pregnant again. She tried to sound excited when she told us over dinner, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Tom had lost his job a month earlier and was doing contract work that barely covered their existing bills. "We might have to move to a smaller apartment," Jessica said quietly after dinner, while we were doing the dishes. "The landlord's raising the rent again, and with another baby coming." I didn't even hesitate. "Don't worry about the rent. I'll cover it." And just like that, I became responsible for my sister's rent. The same sister who used to mock my little cartoons now lived in an apartment paid for by those very cartoons. She stopped making snide comments about my career choices after that. Amazing how money can change people's perspectives. Our Saturday family dinners had become a regular thing again. Every weekend, I'd drive over to my parents' house, where Jessica, Tom, and their kids would already be waiting. The food was always good, the kids were cute, and everything seemed perfect on the surface. But there was a new pattern I couldn't help noticing. The washing machine's making that weird noise again, Mom would say, carefully watching my reaction over her coffee cup. Tommy's growing so fast, Jessica would add. He needs a whole new wardrobe for school, and with the baby. It was always something. A broken appliance, school supplies, medical bills, house repairs. The hints weren't even subtle anymore. The property taxes have gone up again, Dad mentioned one Saturday, pushing his mashed potatoes around his plate. And the roof really needs work before winter. I always said yes. Why wouldn't I? My latest merchandising deal alone could cover their expenses for a year. Besides, it felt good to be able to help, to see their relief when I'd write another check or make another transfer. One night, while watching them all around the dinner table, Mom serving dessert, Dad telling one of his old jokes, Jessica's kids making a mess with their ice cream, I had an idea. How about a family vacation? I suggested. 2 weeks in Hawaii? You should have seen their faces. Mom actually dropped the serving spoon. Hawaii? Jessica whispered, like she was afraid saying it too loud would make the offer disappear. Are you serious? Dead serious. All expenses paid. The whole family. The trip was amazing. Seeing my parents experience their first real luxury vacation, watching Jessica's kids build their first sandcastle, even Tom seemed to relax for the first time in years. Mom cried when we had to leave. But I had an even bigger surprise planned. Mom and Dad's 35th wedding anniversary was coming up, and I wanted to do something special. They'd been driving the same old minivan for over a decade, and it was definitely showing its age. I went all out for the anniversary party. Catered food from their favorite restaurant, new outfits for both of them, decorations, everything. The house was packed with relatives and old friends, all celebrating their milestone. When it came time for gifts, I handed them a small box with a bow on it. Mom opened it, saw the car keys, and looked confused for a moment. "What's this?" she asked. "Look out the window," I told them. There it was, parked in the driveway, a brand new SUV with a big red bow on top. Not the most expensive car out there, but perfect for them, safe, comfortable, plenty of room for groceries and grandkids. They hugged me, tight enough to hurt a little. "We're so proud of you," Mom whispered in my ear. So proud. Looking back now, I should have noticed something off in their expressions when they said that. But I was too happy in the moment, too pleased with being able to give back to my family. Too blind to see what was really going on. It was a peaceful Saturday morning, 2 weeks after the anniversary celebration. Mom and Dad had gone shopping in their new car, excited to take it for a spin. I stayed behind at the house, wanting some quiet time in my childhood home. I wandered into Dad's office, where I used to spend hours doing homework at his big oak desk. Mom had been talking about organizing all the old family photos and documents piled up in the corner, and I figured I'd help out while I had some free time. It was like a trip down memory lane. Report cards from elementary school, Jessica's college acceptance letters, old family vacation photos, birthday cards we'd made as kids. I smiled at a particularly terrible drawing I'd done of our family when I was 4, stick figures with wildly disproportionate heads. That's when I noticed the manila envelope. It stood out among the yellowed papers and worn photo albums, crisp, new, official looking. It wasn't weathered like the other documents, the paper was still stiff, the edges sharp. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside was a legal document, dated just days after the anniversary party. The heading read, "Last Will and Testament." My hand started shaking as I read through it, the legal jargon swimming before my eyes until I found the important part. All assets and property to be transferred to our daughter, Jessica Martin. I read it again. My name wasn't there. Not anywhere. Everything, the house I'd been helping pay for, the car I'd just given them, all of it, was going to Jessica. The paper trembled in my hands. I felt sick to my stomach. It wasn't about the money or the property, God knows I had enough of my own. It was what it meant. All those smiles, the hugs, the "we're so proud of you," had it all been an act? Time seemed to stop until I heard it, the sound of car doors slamming, followed by voices and footsteps approaching the house. The front door opened, and I heard Mom laughing about something. "Robin," she called out. "We're back. Where are you?" I stood up slowly, still holding the envelope, and walked to the living room. They were carrying shopping bags, both smiling and chatting about their trip, until they saw me. Until they saw what I was holding. The bags dropped to the floor. Mom's face went white as paper. Dad looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Would someone like to explain this?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the storm raging inside me. I held up the envelope, watching their faces. Mom recovered first. "Well, we were going to tell you." "When?" I asked. "Before or after you signed over everything to Jessica?" Dad stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker. "Now, Robin, it's not what you think." "Really?" I cut him off. "Because it looks pretty clear to me." That's when Mom's whole demeanor changed. Her face hardened, and she went on the attack. "How dare you go through our private papers," she shouted, her voice rising to that shrill pitch I remembered from childhood scoldings. "Who do you think you are, snooping through your father's office?" I let out a laugh that sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Private papers? In the house that I've been paying for? The house whose utilities I cover every month. Those private papers?" Dad cleared his throat. "Robin, be reasonable. You're already successful. You have your own money, your own apartment. Jessica, she needs this more than you do." I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. "That's not the point, Dad. If you wanted to leave everything to Jessica, fine. But you could have talked to me about it. Instead, you went behind my back, right after I gave you a car, right after telling me how proud you were of me." "We don't have to explain ourselves to you," Mom burst out. "We're your parents. We can do what we want with our property." "Your property?" I repeated. "The property I've been maintaining? The bills I've been paying? That property?" "Give me that envelope," Mom demanded, holding out her hand. "And I think you should leave. And don't come back until you learn some respect." I stood there for a moment, looking at these people who I thought I knew. My mother, red-faced and angry. My father, unable to meet my eyes. I placed the envelope carefully on the coffee table. "Keep it," I said quietly. "Keep all of it." I walked out without another word, got in my car, and drove home to my apartment. I was just stepping out of a hot shower, trying to process everything that had happened, when my phone rang. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. "How dare you," she screamed before I could even say hello. "How dare you try to steal my inheritance? You're already rich. Why do you need Mom and Dad's house too? God, you're so greedy." "I don't want the house," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "I just..." "Liar, you've always been jealous of me." "Well, guess what? Mom and Dad know what's best, and they chose me. Jessica, I'm literally paying your rent right now." "Oh, here we go," she shrieked. "Always throwing your money in everyone's face. That's all you care about, isn't it? Money, money, money." I felt a laugh bubbling up, a slightly hysterical one. "I care about money? Me? That's rich, coming from you. You think you're so much better than everyone else just because." I hung up. Just hit the red button mid-rant and tossed my phone onto the couch. Then I walked to my window and looked out at the city lights, letting the quiet of my apartment wash over me. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to take deep breaths. In, out, in, out. I threw myself into work after that day. My team was amazing. They didn't ask questions about my mood, just helped me channel everything into our newest project. We were creating something special, a series that would push our animation skills to the limit. Then Friday afternoon, my phone lit up with Mom's name. "Robin? Her voice was softer than it had been during our last encounter. "We need to have a family dinner tomorrow. A serious conversation." When I pulled up to the house Saturday evening, I saw Jessica's car already parked in the driveway. Great. The whole gang was indeed there: Mom, Dad, Jessica, and Tom, all seated around the dining room table like some kind of family tribunal. Mom had made pot roast, my favorite. The smell filled the house, but nobody was eating. They all watched as I took my seat, the silence heavy and uncomfortable. Dad cleared his throat. "Robin, we've made a decision." I waited, looking at their faces one by one. Jessica couldn't hide her smirk. "We're transferring the house to Jessica's name," Mom announced. "Right away. We've already talked to our lawyer." Before I could respond, Jessica leaned forward, her expression sickeningly sweet. "Just to make sure you can't contest the will later, you understand. We have to protect our family's interests." "Protect our family's interests," I repeated slowly, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. I looked around the table again, really looked. At Mom, who'd cried tears of joy when I gave them the car. At Dad, who'd hugged me and said he was proud of me. At Jessica, who lived in an apartment I paid for. At Tom, who hadn't been able to provide for his family and let me pick up the slack. And suddenly, everything became crystal clear. "You know what I just realized?" I said, pushing my chair back and standing up. "I've been such an idiot. This whole time, I thought I was helping my family. But I wasn't helping family, I was feeding an ATM machine." "What are you talking about?" Mom demanded. "I'm talking about how you all see me. Not as a daughter, not as a sister, just as a convenient source of money." "Well, guess what? The ATM is closed." "Robin," Dad started, but I cut him off. "Starting today, I'm done. No more paying your bills. No more covering your rent, Jessica. No more gifts, no more transfers, nothing. You want to play games with inheritance? Fine. But you can do it with your own money." Jessica's face went from smug to panicked in an instant. "You can't do that. Watch me." "Robin, be reasonable," Mom pleaded, her voice rising. "We're your family." "No," I said, my voice steady. "Family doesn't do what you did. Family doesn't smile to your face while stabbing you in the back. Family doesn't take and take and take and then treat you like this." They all started yelling at once, Mom crying, Dad calling my name, Jessica screaming about how selfish I was, Tom trying to talk about the kids. Their voices followed me down the hallway, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing for days after that dinner. Texts, calls, voicemails, all of them ranging from guilt-tripping to outright hostile. I didn't respond to any of them. Then Mom took it to Facebook. I knew it was coming. She'd always been the type to air family drama online when she couldn't get her way in person. "I never thought my own daughter would be so selfish," her post began. "After everything we've done for her, she's abandoned her family in our time of need. A child's duty is to help their parents, but some children only think of themselves." I read it with a sort of detached amusement. The comments started rolling in immediately, but not quite the way Mom expected. "Isn't this the daughter who's been paying all your bills?" one of our cousins wrote. "Wait, the one who bought you a new car for your anniversary?" added an aunt. "The same one who paid for your Hawaii vacation," someone else chimed in. Jessica jumped into the comments, calling me an evil, envious thing who can't stand to see others happy. Mom liked her comment, of course. That was the final straw. I picked up my phone and called the insurance company that handled the car I'd given my parents. The car that was still registered in my name. "Hi, I need to report my car for repossession," I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. "Yes, I have the paperwork right here." They were efficient, I'll give them that. The tow truck arrived at my parents' house early the next morning. I got the confirmation text just as I was starting my workday. That's when my phone really exploded. "How dare you take our car? You evil witch, we trusted you." This is theft. We'll call the police. I read through their messages with a strange sense of calm. Then I opened my contacts and started blocking numbers. One by one, I cut off every avenue they had to reach me. That was 6 months ago. I haven't spoken to any of them since. I hear things through the family grapevine sometimes, Mom and Dad struggling to pay their bills, Jessica and Tom having to downsize to a smaller apartment. But it's not my problem anymore. Instead, I've been focusing on myself. Every penny I used to spend on them now goes into savings for my dream house. I'm looking at properties with big yards and plenty of space for a home animation studio. Maybe I'll get a dog. I've always wanted one, but never had the time or energy while dealing with my family's drama. My YouTube channel is doing better than ever. Turns out it's amazing how much creative energy you have when you're not constantly managing other people's crises. My team and I just hit 10 million subscribers, and we're expanding into new projects I never would have dreamed possible before. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Then I remember finding that will, seeing the truth about how they saw me laid out in black and white. I think about all the times they laughed at my dreams, only to turn around and demand the fruits of those same dreams. Some people might call me cold for cutting off my family. But here's the thing, they stopped being family long before I stopped sending money. They just didn't bother to tell me. I had to find that out for myself, buried in a manila envelope in my father's office.